Simon Cowell always says he never cries. He is the tough guy who has built stars, crushed dreams, and done it all without showing a single flicker of emotion. But the first time he heard Courtney Hadwin sing, something in him almost broke. That moment, witnessed by millions, became one of the most talked about auditions in television history. Yet behind the applause, the golden buzzer, and the record deal that followed, lay a story far more complicated than the highlight reels ever showed. Courtney was born on July 6, 2004, and grew up in Hesleden, a small former mining village near Hartlepool in County Durham, in the northeast of England. She was raised by her parents, Paul and Anne-Marie, alongside her younger siblings. Music found its way into her life early, as it so often does with genuinely gifted children. She began singing at home as a young child, gradually moved into musical theater, and started exploring covers as her voice developed. It was watching Connie Talbot on Britain's Got Talent that truly ignited something in her, planting the seed of a serious dream. By around 9 or 10, she had started singing with real intention. At 11, while attending Hesleden Primary School, she performed at a lunchtime open mic, singing Say Something by A Great Big World and Christina Aguilera. That performance was filmed and uploaded to Facebook, where it spread quickly through the local community. Classmates were stunned by the power in her voice, and many urged her to pursue it properly. She listened. She began busking in local spaces to help pay for singing lessons and cover travel costs, taking classes at several local academies. Her grandfather later shared that she gave whatever she could from those sessions just to keep the dream alive. Her first notable competition came in 2015, when she appeared at Teenstar UK in Newcastle, reaching the grand final with a rendition of Bob Dylan's Make You Feel My Love. The following year, she won Hartlepool's Performer of the Year award, became a finalist in the Beyond the Lights ceremony, and auditioned for Open MIC UK. That same summer, she opened for Sister Sledge at the South Tyneside Festival in front of over 18,000 people. For a 12-year-old from a small mining village, it was a staggering milestone. In 2017, she auditioned for The Voice Kids UK with a fiery take on Tina Turner's Nutbush City Limits, earning a spot on Danny Jones's team and eventually finishing as a finalist. Through all of it, she practiced daily, worked relentlessly, and carried herself with a discipline that most adults never develop. Her family was the engine behind all of this. Her mother recognized her raw potential from the very beginning. Her father took on extra work, including delivering pizzas, just to cover petrol costs so Courtney could travel across the Northeast for auditions and open MIC nights. When she later appeared on America's Got Talent, her family relocated to Los Angeles to support her, with her father traveling back and forth between countries so she could compete while continuing her education. Through every television appearance, every record deal, and every moment of international attention, her family remained her anchor, keeping her grounded and reminding her of where she came from. By early 2018, Courtney had built enough momentum that she was invited to audition for Season 13 of America's Got Talent. The invitation reportedly came through show producers actively seeking international talent. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, and she stepped through the door. At just 13 years old, she walked onto that famous stage looking quiet and almost painfully shy. She looked like a Nova schoolgirl, which, in fairness, was exactly what she was. Then the first notes of Otis Redding's Hard to Handle began, and everything changed. Her voice exploded through the studio, raspy, raw, powerful, and impossibly mature. The awkward teenager disappeared, replaced by something ancient and electric. The audience was on its feet within seconds. Simon Cowell, a man who has made a career of remaining unmoved, sat rigid and stunned. His signature composure cracked, and he uttered the words that nobody forgot. "You were this shy little thing when you came out. You sing and you're like a lion." Howie Mandel hit the golden buzzer, sending Courtney straight through to the live shows, declaring that her voice belonged to a whole different era and comparing her to Janis Joplin. Within hours, the audition video was spreading across every platform. By the time the quarterfinals aired, it had been viewed over 310 million times. Fans across the world were calling her a generational talent. She advanced through the quarterfinals and semifinals, delivering electric performances each time, before finishing the competition in 6th place overall, a result that surprised many who had expected her to win. Still, AGT had done what it needed to do. It had introduced her to a global audience and made her name known in living rooms across every continent. Shortly after the live shows ended, Simon signed her to his label, Psycho Music, in partnership with Arista Records. At 14, Courtney described the moment as a dream come true. She spoke excitedly about recording original songs and staying true to herself and the music she loved. What she could not yet see, because she was 14 and the world still looked full of promise, was the weight that came attached to that dream. She was a teenager who had barely learned how to breathe on stage, and she was now expected to deliver chart-ready music, promotional appearances, interviews, and media commitments inside a machine built entirely for adults. The pressure mounted quickly. Her days became a blur of deadlines, meetings, and recording sessions that had nothing to do with the joy she had once found in singing. A typical day might begin in the UK, continue with label meetings by midday, and end in a US recording studio by evening. Those sessions were filled with producers pitching beats, hooks, and themes that she did not connect with. Songwriting teams and industry managers steered her toward a polished pop-soul crossover sound that clashed with her gritty, soulful instincts. She later described feeling that people around her were constantly telling her what she should sound like and who she should be. She was still discovering her artistic identity, yet she was being pressed into a shape that someone else had already decided on. That tension quietly eroded her confidence, turning what had once felt joyful into something hollow and exhausting. The mental toll became real. She described bouts of overwhelm during backstage interviews, the weight of closing a show every week while trying to hold herself together internally. She felt isolated, traveling between continents, surrounded by suits and schedules, missing home, missing the simplicity of who she had been before all of this. Slowly, the social media posts dwindled. Her presence in mainstream media shrank. Fans began to notice and worry. Rumors spread. Some wondered if she had been in an accident or fallen ill. The truth was quieter and more human than any of those theories. She was retreating, trying to reclaim herself and escape a pressure that had become unbearable. Simon, for his part, moved on to the next season. The partnership that had seemed so significant faded into silence. He had never been a personal mentor to Courtney, not really. He was the executive who cast her, the gatekeeper who signed her, and then a man who returned to business as usual. His job, as he understood it, was to spot talent, not to guide it through the emotional wreckage that the industry so often leaves behind. Courtney never spoke publicly about bitterness toward him, and even as a young girl, she seemed to understand the machinery she had stepped into. But the absence of support was felt, and the silence was loud. What followed was a slow and deliberate rebuilding. Courtney began working with Grammy-winning producer Kevin Bowe, known for his collaborations with Etta James and Joe Cocker, and started writing music that felt honest rather than manufactured. Songs like Monsters, You Only Love Me When I Lie, Breakable, and That Girl Don't Live Here emerged from that process, each one exploring themes of vulnerability, anger, resilience, and identity with a directness that her earlier work had never been allowed to reach. Critics described her single You Only Love Me When I Lie as a raw blues soul anthem, calling it her most emotionally powerful work yet. A stripped-down, micless video performance left viewers breathless, with journalists writing that she sounded like thunder and burned like fire. By 2025, Courtney had returned as a genuinely different person. Back living in the UK, rooted in County Durham, she was building her debut album, titled Little Miss Jagged, slated for a September release. She signed with a new management team, Total Artist Management, after leaving her previous management over creative differences, and began booking gigs across the UK, Europe, and the United States. A highlight of her resurgence came in April 2024, when she was handpicked by legendary music executive Clive Davis to open a gala at Carnegie Hall, performing a Janis Joplin tribute in front of industry legends. It was widely celebrated as a sign of the artistic respect she had earned on her own terms. Now 20 years old, Courtney has spoken openly about the emotional cost of her early fame, touching on burnout, loss of creative control, and the pressure she felt to perform before she was truly ready. She has described how reclaiming her voice felt like reclaiming her strength. Her social media presence, built across TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook with over 1 million followers, reflects who she actually is. Someone who shares studio snippets, talks honestly about mental health, and posts weekend scenes from an ordinary life in the Northeast. Fans consistently describe her content as refreshingly real. She hosts Q&A sessions, replies to comments with genuine warmth, and speaks candidly about therapy and self-reflection in ways that many artists her age are too guarded to attempt. Courtney's story is ultimately about what the entertainment industry does to young people when it mistakes a gift for a product. She was 13 when the world fell in love with her voice, and 14 when the machine began trying to send down everything that made that voice extraordinary. That she survived it, rebuilt herself, and emerged with her artistry not only intact but deeper and more honest than ever, is a testament to something the industry could not manufacture: genuine character. She is no longer chasing fame. She is building something more lasting, on her own terms, from the same northeast village where it all began. Sonnet 4.6